These people are so lucky. They went through the most impossible situations, but somehow came out alive. Imagine waiting at a train station and fainting, only to land in the worst possible spot. This is Candela's unbelievable story. In March 2022, a woman named Candela had her life hanging on a tiny rope. She was waiting at the train station like every other person, but unlike the others, she started feeling dizzy. As she fainted, she landed between two train cars. Everyone at the train station was horrified because they probably thought, nah, she's super dead. But when the train stopped, they pulled Candela out alive. She wasn't only alive, but she could still move. She was extra lucky because her fainting made her not remember anything that happened, so she didn't have to live through the horrors of a near-death experience. But that's just the beginning. What happens when a candy factory turns into a nightmare? Patricia Borges knows all too well. Patricia Borges was a worker at a candy factory. On this unfortunate day, one of the workers noticed an odor that definitely wasn't the sweet aroma of chocolate. She reported it to her bosses, but you know how bosses can be. They probably snapped back at this worker, so everyone returned to work. Then the unexpected happened. There was a loud explosion. The worst part of the explosion was that there was a gas line nearby. So the fire got much worse. Just before the explosion, Patricia was walking up the stairs. Suddenly, she no longer felt a floor underneath her. Probably guided by a candy angel, Patricia landed in a big bowl of melted chocolate. How lucky! She was there for 1.5 days, enough time for an all-you-can-eat chocolate fest. The rescue team, while trying to quench the fire, nearly drowned her in her chocolate bath. Well, her luck shined again. They heard her screams and took her to the hospital. She had broken bones and burns here and there, but she survived. Speaking of surviving, a freak accident with a metal rod turned Phineas Gage into a legend. You won't believe how he survived. Phineas Gage was laying railroad tracks in Vermont. He was tamping down explosives, but something went wrong, and kaboom! The most unlikely thing happened. A 3.7-foot metal rod went through Phineas's head. If you placed the rod on the ground, it would get up to LeBron James's waist. That's how long it was. But that's not even the craziest part. Phineas was still standing despite having a rod through his head, and fellow workers who saw him freaked out. Imagine seeing someone carrying a spear in their skull. For them, it was like watching a horror movie. They quickly rushed him to the hospital, but Phineas was chill throughout the entire incident. Even at the hospital, he cracked jokes with the doctor, telling him, "Here's business enough for you." They took out the rod and stitched Phineas's head back up. He went on to live another 12 years. However, the polite Phineas developed anger issues. Well, that's better than being dead. So yeah, his family members wouldn't mind. But if you think that's astonishing, wait until you hear about Casey Wagner's electrifying experience. On October 26, 2013, a guy named Casey decided to cool off in Texas by attending an off-road race. But a thunderstorm started, and of all the places to take shelter, Casey went to hide behind a tree. Soon enough, he was blinded by a very bright light. Then, he literally received the shock of his life. As he was dropping to the ground, the universe probably wanted to make sure there were no surprises with this one. So, the lightning struck him again. Usually, it should have been bye-bye Casey. But Casey showed death he was Zeus enough. What are the chances of surviving about 300 million volts going through your body? You're right, 0 chance. But Casey didn't only survive one strike, he survived two. He only had muscle pain and a couple of other body pains. Plus, he noticed his hands shaking uncontrollably once in a while. But aside from that, Casey was fine. Even the blindness he experienced at the incident was only temporary. Now, imagine surviving a free fall from the sky. That's what Mackenzie Wethington did. In January 2014, Mackenzie Wethington decided to fulfill her lifelong dream of a parachute jump. After some training, it was Superman Day, and Mackenzie was super excited. Once on the plane, her dad took the first jump because he wanted to witness his daughter fulfill her dream. As he reached the ground, he stared into the sky with a wide grin on his face, waiting for his daughter to come flying down. She did fly down all right, but not the way he expected. Maybe she didn't take the training sessions too seriously, or the parachute was defective. Who knows? But she went free fall in the air and crash-landed to the floor. Surprisingly, she was still breathing. The doctors discovered so many broken bones and a damaged liver. But altogether, Mackenzie was alive. She eventually started to walk again and became an inspiration to others in her local community. But if you think that's amazing, imagine being sucked into a tornado and thrown the length of 4 football fields. This is Matt Suter's wild ride. On March 12, 2006, Matt Suter, his grandmother, and his uncle were watching TV at home. Others in the area received warnings of tornadoes forming, but not these guys. Possibly, they were watching the wrong channel. Anyway, they soon realized they were in deep trouble when one tornado was close. The giant fiery air monster sucked Matt in. The tornado swirled Matt. It was like a Ferris wheel, but one moving at an unsafe speed and carrying a lot of things, including cars. The tornado carried Matt 400 meters away from his home, about the length of 4 football fields lying together. There was no chance of him surviving. However, as luck would have it, Matt found himself in the middle of a field. He ran to his friend's house for help. Luckily for Matt, among the huge things the tornado carried, he was only hit by a lamp. He entered the Guinness Book of Records as the person who was thrown the farthest by a tornado and survived. If that blew your mind, Vesna Vulovic fell 33,333 feet without a parachute and lived to tell the tale. How did she survive? The year 1972 came with a January miracle. Vesna Vulovic was an air hostess. Like her colleagues, she entered the plane which was going from Denmark to Serbia, but never reached its next stop. Almost an hour into the air, the plane exploded. The explosion tore the aircraft apart. So, here's the deal. 2 things are likely. It's either the passengers die from the explosion or die from falling out of the plane, but neither happened to Vesna. A food cart pinned her to the back of the plane, so she didn't fall out. The plane landed between some trees that reduced its speed, so there was much less impact. The cold weather also made the landing less terrible. People in the area found Vesna alive to their surprise. They took her to the hospital where she remained in a coma for another 27 days. She beat death and woke up with several broken bones. Even her skull wasn't spared, but slowly she got her life back. She entered the Guinness World Record for the highest fall and survived without a parachute of 33,333 feet. Now let's dive deep into Harrison Okene's underwater survival story. In May 2013, Okene was working in the kitchen section of a ship. He was probably chopping onions to add spice to his delicious soup, but then tragedy came knocking. The ship started to sink after a rogue wave hit it. It sank as far as 300 meters upside down. There's no coming up from that. The passengers who were waiting for Okene's food became food themselves. Sharks came and ate them up. Okene somehow managed to find a small pocket of air in the engineer's office. Luckily for him, a rescue team came for him before the sharks. Okene should have died from drowning, lack of air, or the sharks, but he dodged all of death's bullets. Finally, let's explore the mind-blowing story of Anatoli Petrovich Bugorsky and his brush with a proton beam. Anatoli Petrovich is a Russian scientist. He was doing some good work until one of the equipment malfunctioned. Anatoli went over to check the malfunctioning equipment. He experienced some otherworldly stuff in the process. His head got in the way of a 76 giga-electron-volts proton beam. That's more than enough energy to damage a human body completely. It passed through his head and came out from his left nose. Anatoli saw a flash brighter than 1,000 suns. Despite the radiation, Anatoli survived. He even continued working on the equipment like nothing had happened. He eventually told his colleagues and went to the hospital. He ended up with a paralyzed left cheek, which meant he could only give a one-sided smile. Well, dead people don't smile either, so his loved ones can work with half a living Anatoli. He also had deafness in his left ear. Even at an old age, his left cheek still looks sweet 16 due to the radiation. That's a positive he might be happy to live with. So there you have it, guys. If you enjoyed watching this video, YouTube thinks you will like this one next, so click on it.